Hello again. My name is Sean and I'm going to give you a step-by-step process on how to do a Rockshox Lyrik lower leg service. If you have any doubt about doing a lower leg service yourself, please visit your local bike shop or grab a cup of coffee at Brian's, who's seen doing this repair. You can find contact info about his shop in the description below. The tools and products necessary to perform this service are also listed in the description. They may contain affiliate links, so when you make a purchase using one of those links, you help us support this channel and keep making great content. If you like the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. We also have a Facebook group and you're welcome to join that group with the help of the link in the description below. Now without further ado, let's get started. Before we open up the fork, it's incredibly important to clean it. The dirt could easily get into the fork during the service. Especially the steerer tube can hold a lot of dirt and sand. Spray the fork copiously with bike cleaner. By using a pressurized spray bottle, it's easy to get the stuff into every nook and cranny. After you've used the bike cleaner and let it sit for a minute or two, rinse it off. Any method will do, but a mobile outdoor cleaner will prove to be particularly helpful and efficient. Make sure to dry the fork properly before moving on to the next step. It's recommended for the next steps you use a bench mount work stand to be able to hold the fork while doing the Rockshox Lyrik lower leg service. Remove the rebound adjuster knob using a 2mm hex key. It's at the bottom of the damper located in the right leg. The air spring, located at the bottom of the left leg, is tightened with a foot bolt. Using the 5mm hex key, remove this bolt. After you've removed this, you can take out the rebound adjuster foot bolt with a 5mm hex key. There can be quite some stiction between the bottom of the damper and air spring and the lower legs. So you'll need to knock these out with a hammer. We use specific damper side and spring side removal tools to prevent the threads from damaging. With the removal tool in place, give it a solid tap with a mallet. This should be enough to break it loose. With the lower legs loosened, you can rotate the fork to a standing position and remove the damper and air spring. Be sure to have your oil drain pan ready, because oil will be coming out of the fork legs. Because only the fork brace keeps the loose lower leg in place, it's a good practice to strengthen it using a through axle. We're going to replace the foam rings and seals. From a maintenance perspective, it's better to put in fresh seals and foam rings than to run the risk of compromising the fork because of bad parts, which would be much more costly to repair. To do so, we need to remove the old ones first. Using a fork seal removal tool, we can pop the seals and foam rings out. Clean the parts where the seals and foam rings used to sit using a shop towel. You can also clean the inside of the lower legs, but be very careful not to scratch them. For now, we're going to leave the fork legs for a while and focus on the damper and air spring. Remove the air cap valve cover to get to the valve underneath. Use a valve remover tool to remove the valve. Remove the top cap using a 24mm top cap socket. Don't use a standard socket. A standard socket doesn't engage the top cap enough and may twist loose when pressure is applied, damaging it in the process. Rotate the fork so the stanchions point upwards. The air spring is kept into place with an internal retaining ring. Using retaining ring pliers, you can remove this ring. Using the lower leg removal tool for some extra leverage, we can now simply pull the air spring out. Normally the air spring top cap is attached to one or more tokens. In this case, the tokens had loosened and simply fell out the bottom of the stanchion. Since the tokens had gotten loose from the air spring top cap, we need to attach them again. Use the 24mm top cap socket and an 8mm hex tool to do so, and give it a gentle snug of about 2 Nm. Wipe the old suspension oil from the air spring using a shop towel. Using a shop towel on a long plastic tube, you can easily clean the stanchions without damaging them. The towel is fixed to the tube so you can move it back and forth without it becoming detached. Use suspension grease on the air spring shaft seal head, and the part which connects to the inner wall of the stanchion. Then insert the air spring shaft into the stanchion. The air spring shaft is also kept into place using an internal retaining ring. Place the sag O-ring onto one of the stanchions and rotate the fork into an upright position. Reinstall the air cap using the 24mm top cap socket. Insert the valve again. Pre-soak the foam rings, which we're going to install later. Use a plastic container with lower leg oil. With the legs clean, place the new foam rings into the lower legs. Use a pick to get them out of the plastic container. Since the foam rings were lubricated when moved into place, we don't need any extra lubrication for the seals. The foam rings have left enough on the insides of the lower leg. Using a seal driver tool, we can then proceed to hammer the seals into place. Before reinstalling the damper and air spring, put some silicone grease on the seal channel to aid in this process. It's now time to very carefully insert the damper and air spring into the lower legs. Be careful not to damage the smooth walls of the lower legs during this process. And also make sure that the damper and air spring go in correctly, with the air spring sitting on the left and the damper on the right. The damper is the side with the rebound adjuster. It might take some moving back and forth before the air spring and damper actually go into the lower legs. Next up is the oil insertion into the lower legs. To be able to do this, it's best to rotate the fork so the legs are pointing upwards for gravity to do its job when you put in the oil. Be sure to move both damper and air spring out a little again so they don't stick out of the lower legs, and the oil actually has some room to go into. Put 10 mm lower leg oil into the lower leg housing the air spring using a syringe. Proceed to put 10 mm lower leg oil into the lower leg housing the damper as well. If you haven't already, remove the old crush washers and replace them with new ones. The last thing you want is for your fork to start leaking because you skipped this step. Reinstall the air spring foot bolt and use a torque wrench set at 7.4 Nm to tighten it. Reinstall the rebound adjuster foot bolt. Use a torque wrench set at 7.4 Nm to tighten it as well. Reinstall the rebound adjuster knob using a 2 mm hex key. Inflate the air spring up to 100 psi. This is the starting air pressure, which can be modified based on personal preferences and riding style. Install the air cap valve cover afterwards. A final cleanup with a bit of bike protect and your Rockshox Lyrik lower leg service is done. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Don't forget to consider joining the Facebook group. And I hope I can welcome you again for the next video as well. Bye for now.